Okay, welcome everybody. Nice to have you here. Maybe give us some emojis in the chat if you can hear us okay. Where are you from? Love to hear from people.
Welcome, everybody. I'm excited about this. Moving faster with your strategy.
Yeah, this is our first boot camp of 2020 and 2024. So really excited for it. South Louisiana. I'm actually sitting in Toronto and Laura is in the UK. So let's hear. Oh, hello from Toronto. Yes.
You have some friends.
Yay. Calgary, Saudi Arabia. Nice.
Anyone from the UK? Not yet. Oh, yeah, we have some from London. Welcome. We'll be getting started here in a minute. Welcome.
Oh, Germany. My home country. Hello.
So feel free to use the chat throughout. We also have there's like a Q&A button. There's like a poll button as well. So use the Q&A if you want to ask us anything. We'll check there throughout, and then use the chat to engage, give us your feedback. We'll also be asking you some questions throughout the bootcamp. So feel free to use that. And we'll duck in and out, won't we, Miriam?
Yeah. And you'll see we are recording the session. So the session will also be available for download after. So keep an eye out for that. And the slides will also be available along with some other amazing toolkits. And we still see people dialing in. So we'll give it another couple of minutes to give people the opportunity to join here. Hello from Lisbon, amazing. Oxford, London, more London.
And if you're not familiar with AirMeet, after the session, we will duck out of here and there's some networking tables for you to chat with us directly. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, let us know what caught your eye about this session. We'd love to know what brought you here. We're just coming up to the end of the first quarter of 2024. So hopefully your strategy is going well, but if it's not, that's probably why you're here as well. But let us know what you're hoping to get out of the session.
And we're going to get started very soon. We're still dialing in. Welcome. We'll give it another couple of seconds, maybe.
Yeah, let's get going. We've got some amazing content, amazing resources that you can take away from this as well. So excited to show you all.
Yeah, so let's get started. So again, welcome everybody to our first bootcamp session of the year, Moving Faster with Your Strategy. My name is Miriam Lesa, and I'm here, Strategy Execution Director at Cascade. And I previously led a strategy execution for Adidas in Canada. And I'm here with my amazing colleague, Laura Blackmore, who's going to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. If you've been to these sessions before, you will have definitely seen my face. I am heading up the strategy execution team at Cascade. Been here for a couple of years, so have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly about strategy. I also noticed in the chat, a few of you are quite new in your strategy roles. So hopefully from today, you'll take tons of learning from our experiences that we've had at Adidas, previous organizations, and our hundreds of customers that we work with at Cascade as well. Good to be here.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura. And you'll hear a lot more from Laura later, but I'll get us started here. So let's dive right in. So the company names that you see here on the left side of the screen, what do they all have in common? Put it in the chat as well. And I know it's not that hard to guess, but they're all out of business today. And they're all out of business because they have not adapted to a changing business environment. And they've been overtaken by companies like Facebook, like Apple, like Netflix. Now, as we're looking at these companies here on the right side, all of these companies have been changing their business model and pivoted in times of change and transition. They were agile and they were acting with speed to further pivot in their respective market and change the game for their company. So what can we learn from companies that are moving successfully and that are going faster and further? These companies, they have something in common. They focus on speed, and they also focus on the quality of outcome. It's not only about moving fast from A to B, but rather focus on the outcome and the quality of the outcome to create value faster. Now, all of these companies, we can learn some best practice examples in this ever-changing environment. They do something different. First of all, they continuously and proactively plan. That means they're not being stuck with like long planning cycles, 3-5 years. They implement processes that allow them to continuously check in, have their feedback loops, and continuously improve. And we're going to talk about all the proactive planning a lot more later and give you some amazing tools that you can walk away with and implement tomorrow. What they're also doing is they are implementing agile and streamlined processes. And just using agile methodologies. Actually, 70% of organizations already use agile methodologies. Maybe give us a thumbs up if you're one of them already, and if you're using agile methodologies in your organization to speed up your processes. And then the last thing that we've seen as a best practice from these companies is they use technology to inform decision making. I mean, let's be honest, nowadays it's hard to we should not ignore technology and all the great tools that are available at our fingertips, but how to use them in a right and powerful way to make informed decisions better and faster, that's the real art here. So now, as we've been looking at this, what we learned from these amazing companies being successful, moving with speed, now it's how can you do this? And what can you do to get there? Maybe, again, you're fairly new to strategic planning or strategy management. Maybe you're looking into how to set up your strategy for the next strategy cycle, or you're in the middle of execution and you just feel like it's not moving fast enough or you're missing the mark. Or maybe you're having a really big transformation project coming up soon and you feel like you just need some additional tools that help you to move faster. So that's what we will focus on today. I'm going to walk you a little bit more around what does it mean to really implement speed into your strategy execution. And then Laura will take it away with 3 amazing tools that you can utilize starting tomorrow and implement in your organization. So let's get started here. Looking at strategy execution and the 5 elements of strategy execution. So how do we embed it into those elements? Out of all of our experience that we've had across working with multiple organizations, or even from my own experience and working in strategy execution for multiple years, we see that it's always coming down to these 5 elements for organizations to be successful and acting with speed in their strategy. It's focus, alignment, accountability, visibility, and speed. Maybe give us a thumbs up or an emoji of your choice if this resonates with you, and if you can see yeah, those 5, that's it. So we're going to go through each of these elements now. So to achieve focus in your organization, you probably if you're thinking, oh my God, we need more focus in the organization, you probably find yourself in a situation right now where either you describe it as chaos or there's some unclarity. And whether you're in the leadership role or you're working as a team member, you can feel if your organization is not focused. So what do you need to create focus? How do you get to more focus in your organization? This is really the starting point also to enable speed in your company. You need a clear plan and a clear, purposeful plan. I always heard from someone before, how do you define a good strategy, or what is strategy essentially? And strategy is about making a choice. Making a choice means most of the time making a choice of what to say no to. Because again, it's easy to say yes to everything, but it's really hard to make this distinction and say no to things. We have this fear of missing out and all of these things. I don't have to tell you, it is harder to say no than to say yes. So having a clear plan that really focuses on your long-term vision that you have in mind, that is really the trick here. And also the encouragement is, I guess I want to distinguish here because I said that earlier about the plan and like breaking it into all these parts. The vision is long term. That's the long game that you have, 5-10 years, whatever the vision for your organization is. But the plan can shift. It can be broken down into those smaller chunks, and it's good to to do it in those to break it further down, because this will give you those really actionable projects to move with speed ultimately. And next one is alignment. Maybe give me an emoji as well if alignment is something that you feel you need more in your organization. Usually I've seen in my past, I've worked for Siemens or Adidas, big organizations. You see a lot of operating in silos and a lack of alignment. And that's oftentimes what holds bigger organizations back. Now, how do you create more alignment in your organization? It's coming down to 3 elements. It's creating alignment around purpose, it's creating alignment around people, and it's creating alignment around processes. We're thinking about alignment with purpose. It all starts on the top, and I guess everybody would probably agree with that. It starts on the top. If the leadership team is aligned not only to what they want to achieve in the organization, but also aligned how to get there as a team, that's the starting point for everything. Followed by that, alignment around the people. And this is obviously critical and crucial to move an organization forward with speed. You need the right people in the right seats. And ultimately, processes. If you have your purpose clear, you're aligned on your people, you want to have the right processes in place to move with speed, whether that's cross-functional processes, cross-functional collaboration. All of that those are important elements to move with speed. And especially if you're thinking about you need to maybe shift budgets around or shift teams around, this is important to have in mind and to be aligned here. Then the next element, accountability. And I think accountability is an interesting one, because you would probably agree with me that nobody wants to be micromanaged. But accountability is oftentimes closely linked to governance, and governance sometimes has a little bit of that, are you going to micromanage me now? And I don't know, give me something, but I don't think anybody likes to be micromanaged. So how do you still create this culture of accountability? Because ultimately, a culture of accountability is an enabler to create a high-performance culture. And a culture of accountability is created oftentimes by empowerment, that the teams or individuals share their commitments, almost more on a voluntary basis, but share their commitments, and the achievement is being seen by the team as well. And this is critical. It needs to be seen by the team. So there is this element of visibility and transparency around accountability as well. Once it's seen by others, by team members, by maybe members of other teams, cross-functional teams, then they can ask questions. Maybe they have ideas how to speed up. Maybe there is an opportunity for collaboration. So creating this culture of accountability is critical if you want to build a high-performance team, and high-performance team is what you need and what you want to move your organization forward with speed. Okay, the 4th element is visibility. And visibility is obviously closely linked to transparency and communication. And I want to say as well, for visibility, it's important that sometimes I feel, or I've experienced it myself, and I see it in many organizations that we work with, is their strategy is being built a bit in a silo. It's built by the leadership team, and they're just like building it, and then they want to share it, and then that's kind of like, that's it. So how do you include your organization or key members of the organization to be part of your strategy execution, part of even your strategy creation process. That's where the real power comes in. We want to include, and it's traditionally not always been done like that, but we want to make strategy visible. Why? We want to obviously build a culture of collaboration, trust. It also reduces risks if there's an element of visibility to what you're doing in your organization and what you're planning. Another thing that I've often observed is, oh, but we're not ready. Like, we don't want to share this yet. There is this, we want to get it perfect before we share it with the wider organization. And it's understandable. But at the same time, putting yourself into your team members' shoes, and they want to just know what's going on. Sometimes it's okay, well, it is always okay to communicate the process as well. And I've seen great success in organizations where just people have been taken along the journey and it's been communicated throughout the planning and then also the execution journey, even if things were not ready. So that's all about visibility. So as you can see, we're building up here like focus, alignment, accountability, visibility. And now we get to the element of speed. So this is obviously a bit linear here, but this is a great way to think about all the elements and all the things that you need and that make it easier to ultimately then also act with speed. Speed is connected to decision making. If you feel your organization is moving slow, it's usually because there is a level of slow decision making somewhere in the organization or on multiple levels of the organization. Now, how do you make decisions faster? So this is a tricky one because only a fast decision is not obviously a good decision. You want to make a smart decision, an informed decision. And now I'm going to say something that's probably the opposite of what we're talking here about today, but we want to speed up everything, but sometimes, especially when it comes to decision making, and if you have as a leader everything in place, you want to now slow down to ultimately speed up, because you know that if you slow down, you take like your foot a little bit off the gas pedal to understand all the elements that are in place. You have the right insights that you rely on. You might have the right people that you rely on. You take that pause and then you move on and make your decisions fast, or you make your decisions informed to then move fast and move ahead with speed. I find like that's really critical, and I see a lot, especially as we're talking about speed, and speed becomes that word of we need to move everything fast and we have to be competitive. But ultimately, as a leader, if you're joining us here as a team leader, I'd be really curious to hear if this actually resonates with you. But if you're here as a team leader, we also all know that if we're putting like too much of that speed thinking onto our teams, you can easily create that level of stress in your organization as well. So it's this fine balance between driving with speed, but leaving the room for creativity as well, and taking those pauses to make really smart, informed decisions. Again, that's why strategy is an art and a science, and it's practiced every day. I would say it's not this one-time thing that we do throughout the year. You really want to show ingrained strategy and speed with your strategy every day in your organization. And that's how we want to kind of sum it up for this part of the presentation. So we see we'll look again at the 5 elements of effective strategy here. It's important to look at it actually in the circle because it's all interconnected. You do one thing, you influence another thing, and so on. And of course, how do you do it? And ultimately, the enablers, people, processes, and systems. And again, before I hand over to Laura, I really want to leave you here with this element, or the point of how to approach speed in your organization, and to find that balance between slowing down but then speeding up, and then also always having those elements in mind that you can influence and how to influence them to create the culture of speed in your organization. That's it for my portion. I'm going to hand over to Laura to take you through these amazing tools that I spoke about earlier. And you can walk away with some actual toolkits that you can implement in your organization tomorrow. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Miriam. There was a great question actually that came up. I'm not sure if you're still around, about how you can slow down to speed up decision making. Potentially, you can respond to that in this next section, or we can tackle it at the end as well. But really good to hear that is a problem that other people are facing as well. So in this next section, I'm going to take you through 3 core pillars that we think can help you to move faster and gain that speed that Miriam was talking about with your strategy execution. So the first one is how you can plan with purpose. So some real takeaways for actually delivering on a good strategy plan. Secondly, talking about measuring what matters and really thinking about the right KPIs and how you can actually approach that. I know there was a question in the chat on exactly that, so hopefully we'll cover that there. And then lastly, how you can execute at speed. So bringing in some of the things that Miriam talked about, but a toolkit for you to take away and go and embed in your organization. So let's have a look at planning with purpose. So if we think about the strategy framework that you're using today, I like to think about the plan or your strategy plan being your house. It's really the foundation of which you're trying to build your strategy on. There's a few things that I recommend when you first think about a plan, and to just dissect this a little bit when we talk about plans. A plan could be your corporate or group or company plan. Or it could also mean a team, department, or division plan. It may be your 5-year strategy plan, or it could be your Q1 plan, if you've got some immediate priorities. So think about the plan being that container of all of the strategies and measures and actions that you'll take this year or the next few years. Inside that, we're going to be talking about focus areas, and I'll dive into that in a moment. But when you think about your plan, you want it to be connected to your vision. So whatever your vision is of your organization, maybe your vision, your mission statement, the values of your company, you want the plan to be really cohesive with that. So always go back and validate, is what we're setting out in our plan? And I'll give you some tips and tricks for that in a moment. Is it actually aligned with the vision of where we're heading as an organization? And is it clear? Can anybody in the organization, regardless of where they sit, able to understand that that plan directly contributes to our vision? Next, really prioritize what you're going to be able to deliver value on quickly. It's all well and good, like Miriam said, having a perfect plan which really sets out everything you want to do, but it's actually huge and inflated and isn't prioritized in any way. That's going to make it feel really overwhelming for the teams that want to deliver. So think about how you may prioritize. And there's different frameworks and prioritization matrix that you can find on the web, on our blogs as well, that will help you to understand how you can prioritize. But I'm going to touch in a moment one way you can do that with focus areas. And then lastly, one of the techniques that I found personally very beneficial to the customers of Cascade is that you want the perfect blend of top-down versus bottom-up planning. Again, it's all well and good building a perfect plan at the top. You get your strategy right, and then you push it throughout the organization. The reality is the leaders don't always have all of the answers and know how to actually go and embed and execute the right resources and the right strategies to make the business successful. You actually need that bottom-up planning and the approach and the empowerment of your teams to also meet in the middle. So we like to have a blended approach. Build your top-down strategy, of course, but bring in that bottom-up innovation as well, and then kind of calibrate or align somewhere in the middle, deprioritize some initiatives that, maybe you're not going to be able to resource effectively or put the funds into, but really anchor that innovation somewhere in the middle. Next, I'm going to talk about focus areas. This is one of the things I could talk about all day, every day. Focus areas are a simple part of your strategy, but very effective. So if you think about your focus areas being the rooms in the house, in your foundation, your focus areas are going to be the themes, or sometimes they're called pillars. Sometimes they're called strategic priorities. I've seen them called strategies. I've seen lots of names for them, but they're essentially your themes, your buckets, essentially. Some organizations will have 4 balanced scorecard approach. So we want something to do with financial, we want another bucket to do with our customers, we maybe want to have organizational and people performance, maybe we want to improve our processes. And that's a really great way. If you are a very revenue driven organization, then maybe you want to bring a bit more balance in the organization and think of some other themes to work on. Or the most common approach is you find between 4 and 6 focus areas. Could be people performance or organizational growth. It could be innovation and investing in AI and technology. That could be your second pillar. Your third one could be operational excellence and processes and everything around just the kind of BAU to optimize the organization. Have a think about the themes. And we say between 4 and 6 because any more than that, and you'll probably find that things start to overlap. And when you get overlapping, you can create confusion for people building the plans to not know where they should put their objectives. So think of between 4 and 6. Again, we've got a great resource on our blog if you need some inspiration, but I would definitely start with if you're a revenue generating business, of course, not all of you are. If you're a not-for-profit, for example, maybe it's all about fundraising or donations or whatever that kind of growth mechanism is for you. Typically revenue in most organizations, then you want it to be around the growth. Then you might have one for your people, maybe one for your processes, and you can kind of build from there. But just make sure that they're very distinct from each other. And then my favorite tip would be if you are an organization that can actually push these focus areas throughout the whole organization, or if you found that actually you've lacked a lot of that focus that Miriam was talking about at the beginning, if you are an organization that has lacked focus, I would strongly recommend for this year or coming up to the next year that you pick your 5 or 6 and you push them throughout the org. And that kind of immediately prompts every team to think about, are these initiatives I'm working on right for the business? Are they going to drive the growth or improve our people and performance? Or is it aligned to the technology and innovation we want to be part of in the org? And that can be really powerful because all of a sudden you get a very increased level of focus just by driving through the focus areas. The alternative is that you actually maybe need to foster more innovation in your organization and you want to empower people to kind of do more of that bottom-up planning. Maybe you've been too top-down in the past. Then you can actually get everybody to create their own. And then you do that calibration exercise where you see the kind of themes that are kind of bubbling up from the bottom of the organization, if you like, and then kind of sanitize and say, well, we've got 5 teams all looking at improving people performance. Maybe that should be a key priority for us as an organization. So it can be really powerful for that as well. So they're the 2 kind of ways to think about the focus areas. In the next element, I'm going to talk about how we then start filling the rooms. So how do we start filling our focus areas with the outcomes that we really want to drive as an organization? Now, this is sometimes seen as kind of the easy bit. This is the planning. You're probably already way past this. If you're, following the financial year, you're already at the end of Q1. You've already defined your objectives, hopefully. But if not, or even if you have, you can go back and make sure that those objectives are really going to help you to drive those outcomes. So again, we have our plan, the house, we have our focus areas, which are the rooms. Now we want to fill it with meaningful objectives. Now, again, I like to think of objectives as being approximately or maximum 5 objectives per focus area. So if you've got 4 focus areas, that's going to give you 20 objectives, which for your business may feel like a lot, or it might not feel like enough. So it is indicative. But what I would say is keep that as a benchmark. So 5 objectives per focus area. If you've realized that you have way, way more, then it could just be that your objectives are maybe quite similar, quite overlapping, or you've quite simply are trying to do too much as an organization. And the reality is you're not going to deliver on all of those things. So you may as well drive that focus at the beginning and at least try and achieve a little bit more this year than maybe last year. So that's where we then start filling the rooms in our house with those meaningful outcomes to drive success. Now, once you've done that, a really great step is then to define what success is going to look like. So inside these objectives, so, your wardrobe or your chest of drawers or whatever you want to call that piece of furniture, you then want your KPIs or measures or key performance indicators and your actions or your action plans. So this could be different terminology in your business. I've seen lots of different names, but if you think about your KPI or your measure as being the indicator of success, it's something you can measure, usually through a percentage, a dollar, maybe number of customers, maybe number of leads, maybe it's, how much donation you received this year, how much you were able to fundraise. It's something that's really measurable, something that you can actually attribute a number against. When it comes to action plans, these are slightly different, and you might know these as your initiatives, programs of work, your tasks, projects, milestones, actions. There's lots of phrases out there, but essentially, if we call it our action plans, they are the things that people are doing every day, every week, every month, the pieces of work they are ticking off, they're checking off, they're collaborating with others on, and they're delivering. It could be maybe it's to deliver a deck, maybe it's to run QBRs or quarterly business reviews with customers, maybe it's to roll out a new program or enablement project inside the organization. It's something that's not measurable through numbers, but it's measurable through activity, by ticking things off and progressing through the milestones. So those 2 things normally trip people up, but it's really important distinction to have your KPIs and your action plans separately. And inside your objectives, make sure that they are really fleshed out and owned by somebody. So particularly if you have some initiatives, you want them obviously owned by people in your organization, or they're not going to get done. Same for your key KPIs. Make sure it's something you can actually measure. There's no point saying I want to measure, pipeline, but then you don't have a CRM to actually measure your pipeline. So that's going to cause a little bit of friction. So hopefully you have a system to track pipeline, but that's just an example of making sure it's something you can actually measure with the systems you have. So let's talk a little bit more about the measures and the KPIs. So this is an important distinction. Hopefully most of you know how to build good action plans, but if you don't, we have lots of resources on that. I won't cover it too much today, but let's talk about measuring what matters. We like to talk about elevating your KPIs at Cascade around 2 sets, really, primary and secondary. You may have heard this phrase before. Primary KPIs are the measures that you absolutely need to track as an organization. There was a question a little moment ago in the Q&A about how you decide what to measure. And if you're quite early in your journey, the simple thing to do is get around a whiteboard with a couple of people, maybe Google and look at some other organizations about how they do things. We also have a KPI generator on our website as well, but don't overcomplicate things. You just want to think about what are the things we're going to measure to make sure that we're on track to our vision. So, for us at Cascade, our vision is to help organizations bring their visions to life. So for us, we're going to measure how many customers, what our revenue is. We're a revenue generating organization. So revenue, we might also track how many customers are maybe not sticking around with us so that we can calibrate and see how we're getting things right. And of course, we'll want to track things like our sales revenue and also our pipeline. So I'll talk a little bit in a moment, the leading versus lagging concept, but have a think about the teams in your business, or maybe you have divisions if you're a large organization. What are the top, maybe it's top 3, or maybe it's just 1, or maybe it's 5, but I wouldn't go any more than that. What are the top measures that each team need to track for you to be clear about what you're trying to deliver? The secondary KPIs are still important, but they are more additional measures that are still important to track. And we're definitely not kind of diminishing their place in the strategy, but it's more you would follow that KPI to gain insights rather than using it to assess whether you're on track. So it's an important distinction around whether you have leading versus lagging. And if you're not familiar with this term, it basically means what are the things we can look at today that will help us know whether we're heading in the right direction. And they're called leading because we can look at them and go, okay, our pipeline's not too strong this month. We need to, maybe do some events, maybe do some marketing, etc. And we've got a great cheat sheet here that you can download. I think it will flash up on the screen in a moment, and just start jotting them down. The leading versus lagging concept can get really confusing, and you'll often flip between the two columns, and that's okay. Just have a think about which ones you will look at on a daily or regular basis to see whether you're pointing or heading in the right direction. And then for your lagging indicators, which a good example would be revenue or sales, that's really something that when you hit it, it's kind of been and gone, and you're kind of measuring it after the fact. So it's a lag. Things like market share, you'll be tracking other KPIs to see if you're heading in the right direction, but market share, again, is kind of an event that happens at the end of the year or whenever you measure it. So just use this cheat sheet to kind of jot some things down, have a think about what your primary ones, and I always use the word primary because they're like the top things that you care about as an organization. And usually there's a huge list of them. So if you then have a group of secondary, it'll help you to kind of know how and when you might update and follow and talk about the KPIs. So I'll be talking about that in a second. All right. So once you've done that, how do you then actually execute at speed? I think we've talked a lot about kind of the planning, the thinking that goes into the strategy. And this is often something that you do at the beginning of the year and never again. But really, you should be doing those 1 and 2 activities quite frequently, making sure that you are calibrated throughout the year to really help you to execute at speed. So how do you operationalize this? So I think for a lot of people, they see planning as the easy part. You get, a couple of priorities on paper, on Excel, in PowerPoint. You present it to the business, and everything's great. We're going to have a great year. But then you move into execution, and this is where the downfall can often be. So we've got a toolkit, which is going to flash up on the screen in a moment. I'm going to talk through it. And this is where you can now actually define what your cadence should look like. So for a lot of organizations that I meet, and I've quite literally met probably hundreds this year, is they will often say, yeah, we're super mature. We've got our cadence down. We meet regularly. We talk about the strategy. Like, yeah, we don't need any help here. But the reality is it's quite complicated. And there's a lot of, especially with the remote world that we've moved into, there's a lot of maybe ineffective meetings happening, not the right people in the room, not the right data, not the right things being talked about, or the right actions leaving that session. So one of the things I would recommend that you do after this or later in the week is just assess what's happening. What meetings are in the calendar for your business? What are your recurring operational meetings? What meetings are you talking about? Strategy or strategy concepts? What team meetings are happening? When do you present to the board, etc.? And have a think about what are the things maybe you're talking about in those meetings, or what should you be talking about? It could be your primary or key KPIs. You could be talking about your highlights or lowlights, your key wins. You might be making decisions, or maybe you're not making decisions because the right data isn't in front of you. And a really important one is, are you celebrating wins? Are you celebrating wins in the right meetings and right, topics? If you use Slack or Teams, are you celebrating those wins? Do you do them in town hall meetings where your whole company is there? How does that look? And then secondly, align with your leadership team about what they actually need to make business decisions with speed. What do they need to see? When do they need to have it available? So if you think about going back to your list of primary and secondary KPIs, what are the things you're tracking monthly, quarterly, annually? How long is it taking you to get that data? What do you actually need to see to drive focus in the business? And do you have that data available? Lastly, speak with your leadership team about what granularity of data they need to see from your teams. Is it they just want to see the lowlights? Do they just want to see the risks? Do they maybe want to surface people topics? So yeah, have a think about what that outcome truly is. And then that leads nicely into the orientation point. So think about where you need your story to be the cleanest. Ideally, you set yourself up for maybe it's a quarterly board meeting. That's where the story's got to be really good. And once you start walking backwards from that, you can then find your key moments in your business where you can get your data and your storytelling really streamlined and optimized so that you're just taking that and putting it in the board pack, for example. So have a think about those orientation points that need to be really important, and then you can use that to work back from. And then have a think about your people programs. What are the people programs that might influence this, like performance reviews or training sessions or on-sites? Maybe there's some all hands people programs that you might want to feed in to your calendar. And then lay out the blockers. Maybe if you're lucky enough, you have some company-wide shutdowns over the summer, like in Europe, it's pretty hot. Or maybe, your blocker could be that it takes you 3 weeks to close out your book at the end of the month, which means you're already the third week into the second month. So maybe that could be a blocker to optimize. And then once you have all of that, and use whatever tool you want to do this. Miro, I quite like, or maybe just a classic whiteboard and Post-it notes. Once you have all of that laid out, you can really think about how you can map out a new calendar or optimize one that already exists and make sure that it's really optimized. And then get the buy-in from your leadership or your exec team and introduce it to your company. This is an important step that shouldn't be overlooked, and that is communicate with your team members around when and how and what should be reported on the strategy to then make it really, really clear. You don't want people just running around doing objectives, running around, achieving their initiatives, but then they actually don't have an outlet to communicate that. And then maybe, 6 months later, someone's like, give me the update on that thing you did in January. And it just causes a lot of friction points. So that's a step not to be overlooked. I think moving on, I think we're coming up to the end here. Yeah, there should be a download coming to you for that in a moment, but hopefully that helps with the 3 things that you can implement. Probably not tomorrow, unless you have a free diary. But the first one, go back to your focus areas. Think about the framework and the strategy house, if you like. Have a think about whether you are already adhering to that or whether you can optimize your strategy. Secondly, have a think about your primary and your secondary KPIs. Make sure you've got a good blend of leading and lagging indicators. And again, check out our blog posts if you need some more support there. And then lastly, if you don't have an operating cadence, go and implement one. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can just pick some small wins from that cheat sheet that we sent, or go and optimize one that already exists. So hopefully that helps and gives you some key takeaways you can start doing from today. So I'll leave you with this quote and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. Without strategy, execution is aimless, and without execution, strategy is useless. So hopefully you've recognized the importance of the execution component, which is what we're all about here at Cascade. All right. I realized that was a lot of information. So let us know how you're feeling, what resonated. I will look in the chat now and see what you were all feeling. And here's Miriam, we'll do quick Q&A, I think.
Yeah, that was amazing, Laura. Thank you so much. Yeah, big applause for Laura here. I see lots of emojis. A couple of questions, and I can probably get started here. Oh, thank you so much. There we go. Can you elaborate on slow down to speed up decision making and how to drive leaders to do that? Excellent question. Definitely one of my favorite topics. Well, I guess there's two elements to it. Like, how do you slow down yourself? I think it has to do a lot around with your own self-awareness, probably, of like when you are in this tunnel and when you are starting to like noticing that you are actually in the tunnel to take you out. I call it tunnel, but you call it whatever you want to call it, and just step out, and whatever that may mean for you, to have a break. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I think that's the key element. And how do you drive leaders to do that? Well, I think a lot, depending on your position in the organization. If you are a leader and you want to influence your colleagues, I think a lot is by living it and by showing it and demonstrating it and inspiring others to do the same. I would say is a good starting point, because it's really hard to tell others to be like, hey, slow down. But I think you can always inspire the conversation or suggest to have a conversation about it. What else do we have here? There is another question that I see. Isn't technology a tool for data-informed decision-making? And the key is knowing what to measure and how to use the data. Nonprofit, it's not as clear as profit. Yep, I agree. I'd like to hear your perspectives on how to choose the right data. How to choose the right data, or how to choose the right of anything, be it your objectives or your projects. I would say one good question to ask, in my opinion, is always, what happens if you don't do it? This can easily help you to differentiate whether what you should look at and what you should not look at. What happens if you're not looking at this data point? What happens if you don't follow with this focus area or this objective through? What happens? And that will usually inform whether it's actually strategically important or not. And to choose the right data is it's following a very similar principle. It's like looking at these objectives or your focus areas, and how is your data influencing this? And is it going to help you make a decision that helps you speed up in your strategy process at the same time? Laura, I'll let you add anything here while I'm scanning through other questions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, like I said, it's easier to pick kind of the revenue generating measures, but there are tons out there. And I personally like to get people to either ideate together or, have a quick Google. There's plenty of content out there, or use our KPI generator as well, which is really useful. There are a few other questions in the chat, but I think maybe we'll save them till the end, because I know we have one very last small segment.
Yes, we have the last segment. We want to actually talk about Cascade. And I see there is actually one question about how do I properly track my strategy execution. So this is a good segue to hand over to Beck.
Welcome back.
Thanks, guys.
Go ahead and share your screen.
Well, I have a quick something to share with you all. My name is Beck. I am here to help you transform the way that you do strategy. So a great answer to those questions, actually. So chances are you are here because your strategy is probably moving really slow. So the question we kind of like to ask here is, think of the last time you hit those yearly goals you set. So let me make a wild guess, though. If you are here today, probably your strategy lives in one of these two. You know the feeling with these. The spreadsheets are overflowing, the slides are scattered everywhere, tabs are multiplying faster than you can even click on them. But trust me, you would not be the first ones to struggle with this. So lucky for you, you have just stumbled across the only solution you will ever need and the answer to those questions. So Cascade is actually going to centralize your strategy under one roof and enable that accelerated decision-making we've been talking about and streamlined efficiency so you do hit those yearly goals that you set. So picture this: no more slow decision-making, no more working in silos, and no more wasted time. You'll be hitting those yearly goals right by Q3. So Cascade will help you execute your strategy faster than ever by enabling your team to plan, execute, and track everything in one single easy-to-use platform. So here's how Cascade will help you change the way you approach strategy for good. The first thing we will take a look into is accelerating your decision-making by centralizing your tech stack under one single roof. You'll be able to see all of your key metrics and present them on sleek reports that are created in just a few clicks. So no more time wasted getting those end of the month figures together. Cascade will make those reports for you with no need to update them. You'll just choose what you want to report on and easily be able to share it out with whoever needs to see it. The next thing that comes with using Cascade is breaking down those silos and making visibility the keyword of your business. So we all know that teams operating in silos tend to duplicate work and often put time into projects that are not aligned with your organization's actual overall strategy. So Cascade changes that with a state-of-the-art planner. You'll be able to see exactly what everyone is working on and how that is impacting your overarching strategy. Next up, you'll be aligning your team like never before and making them focus in on what really truly matters. With Cascade's alignment map, you can see what initiatives are aligned across the organization. You can give your projects purpose and discard those projects that don't have an effective impact on your ultimate long-term goals. So if you are ready to transform your strategy forever, book a quick call with us and you will see how Cascade will transform your current strategy situation into the lean, mean efficiency machine you have always dreamt of. And the absolute craziest part, customers like Mercedes, Carhartt, and Bosch have said that Cascade has improved that bottom line in less than 12 months. So dive in, book that call, bring transparency, alignment, and fast decision-making to your team today. We are ready to show you the new way to do strategy. And with that said, hopefully that gets you, go ahead and book that call, reach out to our team. We'll give you some more information on this and it's going to change really quickly. So with that, I will pass it back over to Laura and Miriam to kind of close this out. And we will be at the roundtables as well if anyone has any more questions.
Thank you so much, Beck. Yeah, like Beck mentioned, if you want to see Cascade in action, let us know. We have these slides and all of the resources available. And then I think we're going to pop over to the networking tables. Miriam, anything else to close out with?
No, thank you so much. Yeah,
thank you all.
Questions, we'll see you there.
See you there. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.